Hi there, yeah, I'm Mark McCormack. I'm one of the owners of Talking Tables. We're a product business, obviously the GA, but I always introduce myself like that because I normally talking to service people as well. So, and we've been going 26 years now, so we're in the gift games party space, so a lot of paper products. We do work with Qalara as well, so we source from multiple places around the world, Far East, Europe, India, operate in the US as well. Yeah, I think that's...
You do a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
A lot. Yeah.
So I'm Ashley Stein. I am the commercial director for the US arm of our business here at Fidelity. I am currently on year 11 of this role. I previously worked for a different company in the US, but I've always remained in the gift and lifestyle toy sector and really enjoy it. I've really enjoyed over 10 years of supporting international brands coming into the US has really been my niche and something that I'm really passionate about. So now I get to do it for Fidelity, and I'm excited to meet you.
And we know Aditi. How are you, Aditi?
Yeah, I've already introduced myself, but I've actually, before I did Qalara, I worked in retail for a very long time, for more than a decade, both brick and mortar as well as e-commerce. Had the opportunity to start a fashion e-commerce company as part of a larger corporation, which is today India's, one of the top 2 largest fashion e-commerce companies today, more than $1 billion. And I did, since we're going to touch on the US, I did go to business school in the US and spend some time there, so some familiarity with that market, and we do a fair bit of business there as well. So happy to share that as relevant.
So I think I'm going to go to Ashley, and I'm going to ask a question about brands and US growth in general. And I think that the GA work really closely with Fidelity, and you guys support our members from smaller businesses all the way up to really accomplished businesses. But when they're taking that step from UK into the US market, we turn to you guys, and I just wanted to maybe speak to you about what it is a brand needs to do, think about to achieve that step.
Sure. So I don't think there's enough time for me to cover all of that without getting kicked off the panel. But essentially, it really just boils down to planning and asking the right questions and making sure that you are researching the market, making sure you understand if your product translates to the US market properly, and if it doesn't, making those adjustments. In the past, I've seen a lot of UK companies, some of them were my own clients, of basically coming into the US without a plan, without a sales plan, without a route to market plan, just assuming it was going to take off on its own magically. And obviously we know that doesn't work. So really taking your time to properly plan and align yourself with the people who are going to support you in a brand new market and territory, and being open to making the adjustments that need to happen in order to take off properly and learn from others' mistakes, I think is really the most valuable thing any brand can do, regardless if it's the US or another country.
I was going to say, because people do their trend research when they're entering the UK market, and it changes all the time. And does that translate over into the US as well when it comes to trends in the UK to US? Is it?
I would say it's very complementary. A lot of the UK market does translate really nicely in the US, but there are always accommodations that need to happen. I see it every single day when I spell fulfillment, because obviously we spell it differently. So just little nuances and things like that. Packaging, the proper way. So just being mindful of little nuances, and sometimes you want to keep those nuances in place. It really depends on the product and the sector that you're going into. So it's again aligning yourself with a group of supportive people that can help provide that guidance and that expertise, and even just sharing stories about success and failures and not having to experience them firsthand.
And I mean, going to Mark, I mean, you have entered so many different markets, but the core of your business and what you do and you strive to achieve remains the same. So what is it that Talking Tables thinks about when they're entering a new market, whether that be UK or US or?
Yeah, we've got 3 distinct business groups now as well. We've broken it down. So we have our volume channel. So we're working with Tesco, Sainsbury's, people like that. Then we've got our Talking Tables brand, which would be sold to gift retailers, large and small, which could be John Lewis, down to small independent gift retailers across the UK and the US, or Barnes & Noble in the US, for instance. And then we've got our marketplace channel, so we've got Amazon or Walmart marketplaces, and Amazon, and the selling model is completely different, and the internal structure to supply these customers is completely different, and the warehousing requirements is also different as well, and varies across the UK and the US, because we have a US facility, but there's major differences between the way the UK and the US works. In the UK, we have to deliver to everyone. In the US, if you're doing big B2B, then they come and collect. But there's routing in the US and not that much routing if anything, in the UK. So lots of terminology to learn.
Wow.
And we haven't cracked Europe yet. That's going to be the next one.
I see. And so is it like a learn as you go kind of thing? Just wing it and hope for the
No.
best? Or is it,
No.
how do you challenge?
That's a very expensive, sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
answer
go.
for you.
Yeah, so how do you navigate that, all of those different?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, the requirements are going to vary depending on your brand and your customers. But you can learn, obviously, from coming to events like this and networking.
That's right, everyone. When we've got events, you've all got to come.
Yeah.
It does, but it does help, doesn't it? Because you don't know sometimes what you're going to get out of a conversation, but actually you could learn something huge for your business.
And we talk to a lot of people at the trade shows, so that's the value of doing Spring Fair and US trade shows as well, is that you meet other brands all the time and you can swap stories, etc.
Yeah.
So recognise a few names out there, I know. So
That's good. That's good. And Aditi, how would you say Qalara supports a brand if they came to you saying, I want to grow in the US market, or is there something that Qalara can do and to support a brand in that?
Absolutely, because we supply to so many countries. We have customers in more than 60 countries, so we're often crisscrossing in a sense that our customers may be in Australia and we're shipping it, so we're billing to a customer in Dubai, but we're actually shipping it to Australia, or we're billing a customer in the UK, shipping it to the US. That happens all the time. We also do some amounts from Vietnam, Indonesia, but primarily India, of course. And with the tariff situation, we've seen a lot of interest from American companies, what they were previously sourcing from China or actively sourcing from China, looking at what of those can actually be done in India. So those are also some areas that we have been expanding into more aggressively ever since the tariff situation has come in.
I think that leads quite nicely into the tariff talk. I mean, I don't really have a specific question because it's been so ever-changing. Can we just talk about tariffs and how it may be affecting what you've heard, how it's affecting businesses, what are businesses doing to navigate these challenges? And guys, if you want to join in with this, or if you have any questions, then please just let us know. But who can take that one? I'll direct it to the panel.
shall I start off?
Sure.
Yeah. So, if you went back 5 years ago, we probably sourced 85% of our product from China.
Okay.
We've always sourced from Europe, but probably didn't source anything from India. We've been consciously de-risking from the US anyway, even before. Obviously, there's a first round of duties came in under Trump's first presidency, so about 5 or 6 years ago, introduced duties on some product. Our product, a lot of it didn't have duty hit on it, so it wasn't too bad, but some did. But we were concerned with China around an escalation. Maybe they might have an issue with Taiwan or something like that, and suddenly become a pariah country, difficult to deal with. So we've been looking at other options like Turkey, Vietnam, Bangladesh, etc. So we're now down to about 50% from China, but it's still an important production area for us, because Chinese are very good at making products and they're very flexible, and it's a very sales-driven economy in terms of, if you've got a change that you need to do on something, a variation, they will accommodate that and the delivery won't go late. Europe tends to be a production-driven environment, so not so much sales. You make a change, delivery is going to be 2 weeks late, and there's not much you can do about that. So we de-risked from China anyway, and then obviously we've had the real duty shenanigans this year, which has caused a major issue, obviously, from anyone who's importing into the US that is making products in China. So that's why countries like India, for instance, have obviously benefited from this. And we have had to change quite a lot of our production routes to accommodate our product going into the US. It's been challenging.
Have you modified your US pricing in light of any tariffs at this point in time?
We've done some modification, but it's been a roller coaster ride with the rates going up and down.
Sure.
And you don't quite know where you are. So China's on pause until about August the 12th or something like that, and then it might go to 30 plus whatever was in place before, and then it's 10% on everywhere else, but he was talking about 50% for Europe. India was going to be 26, I think. So
and it changes every other day, it seems.
yeah. And then those other countries are coming off early July. So you don't know where to turn. And when you're setting prices, if you're making a sale to a big company in the US like a Kohl's or someone like that, and you're guaranteeing a price, they're not going to be interested if suddenly, if you're landing the product and suddenly you're hit with this extra duty bill. Because and quite often with the product, like TJX for instance, the product is all stickered in China or India, wherever it's made, and it says originally was $50, now $35. Of course, it was never $50 in the first place.
Right.
So you don't have the same thing in the US, I think, in terms of having to have products on sale for a
You
period.
do.
But they ignore it.
Yes. Yes.
So
It's a gimmick.
yeah. So you see, you can't keep re-stickering everything.
No.
We've had to do a bit of that from Barnes & Noble, actually, because we had to put some prices up there. But yeah, if you're stickering products in a factory, you can't then re-sticker in the warehouse because it's a nightmare opening cartons, etc.
So can I ask how Barnes & Noble reacted to the rise in costs?
They've put their prices up to consumers, so there will be some consumer price inflation in the US.
But did they give you any pushback during that conversation? Were they trying to strong arm you at all, or was it really a mutual understanding of this is the nature of where we're at today? And
they were pretty fair, actually. So
Kohl's will likely not be fair.
Kohl's wouldn't be, yeah.
No.
Yeah, so
Good.
FabFitFun, they were a bit hard to work as well. So
Okay.
yeah.
I always find that interesting to see how the retailers are responding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what about you, Ashley? How are you seeing
Sure.
the effects? And you deal with companies all the time with their sales strategies. And before the tariff situation, there were so many of our members so eager to get into the US. Have you seen a decline in that interest, or?
No, I would not say a decline. In fact, I would say the opposite. We're seeing where others were saying, okay, probably 12 to 18 months is when I'm going to launch and really hit the ground running for the US. Now we're seeing that rapidly move up.
Okay.
And I say that because it is trying to take advantage of the reduction in Chinese brands having market share and trying to capitalize that while they can. I really see this as being similar to the COVID situation, where the brands that leaned in to change and that pivoted and found new solutions, they succeeded and, you know, found amazing growth in their business that I think lasted at least 2 to 3 years before it really kind of settled back down. And I see this as being the same situation. I think it all is going to depend on how you respond and react. If you're willing to, you know, make some necessary changes and get outside of your comfort zone and work with new suppliers and find additional solutions, and, you know, be willing to ask the questions, you know, to figure out, okay, what other options are out there and what can I be doing differently, but also taking that action and not just sitting back and saying, oh, the tariffs, because other people will, and you're going to be left behind. And I think it's just like COVID, you know, the brands that did not lean in and didn't pivot, and they were very, you know, risk adverse. I think they felt the pain and they were left behind.
That's brilliant, yeah. And so would you say, if you were a brand looking to get into the US, from start just researching to actually launching, how long would you normally say? I know it's how long is a piece of string, but on average, how long would it take for a brand to have everything ready to go to market?
So I don't think there's one answer that works for each brand, because I think they're all in a different stage of readiness, you know, and some of them will be immediately prepared just by the nature of what they're selling and how it translates to the market, won't have to do a whole lot. But honestly, I think that if you give at least a minimum of 6 months, and that needs to be for planning, that needs to be for any sort of production changes, for landed cost evaluation and making sure that everything is accounted for. Not only that, but then also, you know, you have to think of your sales plan and your strategy and making sure that you have the ins and the circle of support, and you have the connections to help essentially launch your business in the US, because too many brands will come in and say, oh, well, I'm doing really great on Fair, and, you know, that's how I'm getting all of this US business and activity, so it makes sense, I need to grow in the US. Yes, you do, but you cannot rely on Fair to do that for you. You have to have a sales plan. You don't necessarily have to have a US-based sales manager. You can absolutely outsource that with a lot of great either distributors or sales agencies, but you have to have that plan, and it has to make sense. And you really have to make sure that your pricing is right. I've seen a lot of times where, you know, I've had to almost strong arm some clients in the past that their pricing was too low. I have one now that we support in the US. It's a UK candle company, and they're like, I can't raise my prices anymore. And I'm like, if you don't raise your prices, people are going to think there's something wrong with your product. Like, nobody is selling
Really
this gorgeous candle with this gorgeous packaging for that price at all. And they're going to look at it and be like, oh, there's something wrong. Wow. You know, so it took, I don't know, weeks of going back and forth on pricing, and finally agreeing at what made sense. And had that change not happened, they wouldn't have sustained. Wow. You know, especially they wouldn't have the accommodations in place to, you know, start taking hits with the tariffs and then having the ability to change and pivot moving forward. So honestly, as long as you have the right circle of support and you have the network in place, I think that 6 months is a reasonable expectation. You know, obviously there's products,
but just being ready,
planning, yes.
Yeah. And I'm just going to go, let's touch on fulfillment, but let's touch on some of the challenges that maybe fulfillment has faced recently and how you guys are navigating that. And yeah, just talk to us a bit about that.
Just in terms of challenges, my life is a lot different now that I'm at Fidelity, and I promise this isn't a sales pitch, even though I'm a commercial director. In my former role, it was very much all of our clients had to fit into this box. We were not flexible. They had to take everything as we presented it. You will know this. And it had to be their way without any modifications whatsoever. that was very challenging for me, especially with new brands bringing into the US, because they didn't necessarily need everything at that point in time. And now at Fidelity, we truly tailor our solution around what our client needs, which, in return, they have more cash flow. They have the ability to invest back into their business because they're not eating it all up in 3PL support. And that, I think, is huge. It's something that I value so much about our company, because it isn't just saying we're the best provider out there. It is truly showing that we care about the relationship and we care about the brand succeeding so much that we are not going to say take it or leave it. It's all or nothing. We're going to say, okay, we only want to do what you truly need us to do and be that solution and provide that value. So I think that not having that ability is a huge challenge for a lot of 3PLs. We're seeing it in this market. We see it in the US market. But it's not a challenge for me anymore. So,
That's so lovely. I'm going to turn to you guys. Does anyone have any questions for the panel? I think you will be pinned down, you guys, later for lots of questions, I think. And just do ask questions, learn, grow, and share stories with each other. And I hope you've got something out of today. But can we just have a round of applause for our panel?